Hey everybody, it's Sean from Low Code Approach. Thanks everybody for, all the amazing suggestions that we had all year and guests to talk to and just topics to cover. We had a blast with that. We can't wait to do more and we need your help with more topics at aka.ms/low code topic request. We also need your help with ratings and reviews on whatever platform you use to get your podcasts. So please drop a rating, drop a like, and follow us on LinkedIn at the Low Code Approach LinkedIn group. Can't wait to see you there. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team. Now, here's usually where I would pass the mic over to another one of our hosts, Wendy, but Wendy's not here. And so then in recent episodes, we've been passing the mic over to Jocelyn, but Jocelyn also isn't here. So it's like, where is everybody? Where are they? And we found out that Wendy and Jocelyn are on a adventure right now discovering fish facts together. And hopefully when everybody returns, come and join us in an exploration of all different fish facts. And also, if you're friends with Jocelyn on LinkedIn, ping her and she'll give you all the fish facts you could ever want. Tell her Sean sent you on that. But anyway, regardless, we're also joined by...
Hi, my name is Ken Aguilar, Principal Program Manager here at the Empower Platform. And Sean, I have a question. What does Tony Sacheries and our current person that we're talking to today have in common?
Well, I'm going to call myself out here and say I don't know who you're talking about for that first person. So I hope that you would further elaborate.
Tony Sacheries is seasoning. And so what I was going to say is that they're both seasoned professionals right here, Sean. Well, welcome to the podcast, Ryan Cunningham. Thanks for coming back. How are you today?
It's wonderful to be here, Ken. I feel like that was a fish fact in disguise somehow, but here we are.
Well, Tony's makes everything better. So for folks who don't have that, I'm sorry, I'm kind of plugging Tony's here. Try it on some fish. It'll be great.
I didn't realize the Low Code Approach got sponsorship since the last time I was on. This is amazing.
I think we might have to.
Now, Ken, always so flavorful with your intros. Hey, so why are we bringing Ryan on board again? First off, the episode he was on previously was amazing. So much feedback from people. So many times it was referenced from both internal and external. It's been absolutely fantastic. But what we want to do is bring Ryan on board to talk about the year that was 2024 and Microsoft Power Apps. And looking back at the episode that we recorded back in March, I closed out the episode by asking Ryan, like, hey, what's on the roadmap? What's coming forward for Power Apps? And you said three things: Copilot, Copilot, and Copilot. And oh boy, did you 3 out of 3 knock it out of the park. So we're kind of hoping you can kind of give us a quick recap on what happened in 2024 for Microsoft Power Apps.
Yeah, man, what a year it was. And I would say, overall, we are really starting to look at the world through the lens of what we call intelligent applications. That's maybe more of a multisyllabic way to say Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. Especially, it also forces us to kind of take a more rounded view, right? When we say we're adding a lot of Copilot into business software, that does not literally just mean slapping a bunch of, chat interfaces onto the right-hand rail of everything. It is really, how do we rethink what it means to build and use and manage at scale the next generation of business software that is inherently more intelligent than the last generation of business software in each of those dimensions. And so in 2024, we took some very big steps forward on all three of those fronts. We introduced this fall a whole new concept for what it means to build software with AI in the form of the Power Apps Plan Designer, which we first unveiled at the Power Platform Conference and are actually right now rolling onto trains into a public preview. Super exciting holiday gift for the community right now. We also took some big steps forward in what the apps and solutions you can build on the platform can do out of the box, and particularly kind of pre-building intelligent agents into those applications, making it easier to enter data, pull reports, understand what happened since you were there last. And then on the third rail, we've really sort of started to rethink what it means to manage all of this, and taking some really big steps forward in our managed platform. You're really expanding out what we previously thought of as managed environments. AI plays a role in all of that, and really it is this shift at scale to an intelligent application future that's motivating a lot of that investment and the stuff that comes next.
One of the things I heard for Ignite, I mean, all of us are just kind of fresh off of Ignite. If you had a few customers walking up to us, in public on the floor, at the booth and so on, and a common question I got was, hey, where does Copilot Studio fit inside of intelligent applications? Like, how do I integrate that? What are agents? Like, are agents bots? And it was still, the terminology still had a lot of confusion. So maybe, do you feel that it's matured? Where does it all fit? I'll stop rambling, please, sir.
It is something that is rapidly maturing, but I would say, look, if your frame of reference for AI is a Copilot chatbot, think of an agent as something that does not have to wait for a human to type it a message in order to start acting, and can do a lot more than just type a message back. Copilot Studio is very central to everything that we're doing there. In fact, all of the features we're building in Power Apps, for example, both for makers and for end users, effectively build on top of Copilot Studio. But we're really starting to push beyond chat and chat bots as a modality. For example, if I am coming to the Power Platform plan designer and I want to express a business problem and design a solution to solve it, I don't have to start with a chatbot and type everything out in text. I start, uploading documents and I start describing my problem in a few sentences, and we hand that problem off to a series of very specialized agents. First, a scenario agent will go propose a set of users and user stories and jobs to be done, and we'll iterate back and forth with that agent. And then a data modeling agent will go propose and design a schema in Dataverse.
Hmm.
And then a solution architecture agent will go and propose several different apps and automations that will go address the scenario. Now, I can interact with those agents in text, but I can also, add, delete, change, modify the things that they create. Those agents can create text back for me, but they're also creating additional artifacts. They're creating data models, applications, content, and design. And so even in that scenario, I'm starting to use a series of very specialized agents that go way beyond a chatbot. And we really start to think of them like digital coworkers. And that starts to open up some really, really exciting opportunities. And I would say, the customers that grok that are actually very excited about that. They've sort of realized that, an intelligent chatbot is great, but there is a limit to what it can do in my company. An agent that can go take action on my behalf can actually start to really meaningfully accelerate a whole lot of work, and that gets exciting.
Follow-up question for that. We often talk about build versus buy, but sometimes I like to think about it a little bit differently. You need to buy so you can actually build. And you're talking about these intelligent applications. Do you think that with the introduction of AI and so on, that the fear that people had, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, when we first started introducing AI, that's dying down, Ryan, now because of the maturity of the industry?
Look, I would say every technology goes along a maturity curve, and there's different forms of fear at every stage of that curve. I would say, talking to a whole bunch of customers just recently, even between Ignite and now, I've had the chance to sit down with customers in the US, in Europe, in Asia. The nature of the questions is changing substantially and really moving from how do I turn it off? How do I avoid it? To really rapidly, how am I going to get real ROI from the tech? And how am I going to show my leadership that I'm driving down cost right now and driving up efficiency right now? And where is that going to come from? And that's really where our investments on agents are centered. We think there's a big cardinality difference here. Everybody may have one copilot in their professional life that's a personal assistant for productivity, but your company may have thousands of agents, that are doing highly repetitive and specialized tasks over and over and over again. And that, again, is where you get to really interesting opportunities for just a whole different type of software landscape and a whole different type of economics as a result. So build or buy is absolutely a debate to reopen here, but with a completely new set of characters and opportunities at our disposal.
Yeah, one of the things I was looking over in my spare time here was reading some of the Forrester and Gardner reports and
Yep.
what they've had to say about the industry. And they had some really interesting things, well, not interesting, really great things to say about the platform. in terms of ROI from buying the platform and so on. What would you perhaps say, Ryan, to folks who are maybe on the cusp and thinking about it and just need maybe a little encouragement to take the
Yeah.
plunge?
Look, I talk to those folks all the time. I would say, what I often say to them, look, we've got some really great Power Platform customers in every industry, but even in the luxury products industry. I've sat down with the likes of Chanel and BMW and Mercedes-Benz and many others. Unlike those great brands, Power Platform is not a luxury product. We are not an add-on. We are very fundamentally on a mission to change the economics of software and to do it for the better, to the advantage of organizations. And now is very much the time to go in on that bet, right? Because if you look at some of these analyst reports, not only are they studying historically customers that have invested more than $1 million in Power Apps licenses for the last 3 years and putting together some really impressive metrics of that past. Forrester says even an organization of more than 40,000 people that invest more than $15 million in Power Apps over a 3-year period. That's licensing plus humans to go implement. Even at that scale, you should expect to more than double your money, pay back your licenses in the first 6 months, compress software development by 50%. These are really hard numbers based on empirical evidence, but all looking in the rearview mirror. That same analyst team at Forrester also, just within the last few weeks has put out an opinion piece basically saying, hey, we expect over the next few years a lot of point solution SaaS to consolidate onto generative low code platforms. In fact, we already see customers refusing to buy new SaaS products and sort of going as a default to build them in low code instead, and particularly in Power Platform. And generative AI not only makes that viable to do much faster than before and more effectively than before, but it also creates the push of why I want to do it. I'm not just recreating the last decade software. I'm actually taking things that were very manual and making them much more automated and much more agent infused as I go. That really creates a whole new landscape for how we think about that build versus buy calculus in a way that drives real dollar savings right now.
That's a really good point. One topic I'd like to touch on, kind of revisit the third pillar, if you will, or the third item, your breakout session at Ignite, which we're going to share a link to because everybody should watch it. I tried to watch this in person, but they were at capacity and were turning people away. The room was too full, but the recording is fantastic, so everybody should check it out. So with building new applications, and you've got all this innovation and you're including AI agents in there, what about the governance aspect on there? So, okay, we're now building and building and building, but man, that governance overhead, what does that look like for me as an admin? And how can I make sure that I'm not bearing the brunt of all this innovation as an admin? How do you talk to organizations about that?
Let me just say I've trained Sean well.
It's your Dr. No Roots showing goal camera. Actually, this is becoming one of the primary advantages of the platform is that we can actually streamline the governance of a lot of applications in the enterprise. And if you think about this relative to the actual status quo, the actual state of all the build or buy decisions that a corporation has made over the last 30 years in every corporate department, we have a mess today on our hands. And that's before you even talk about anything a citizen developer does. Go even look at every individual corporate department. Gartner estimates the average corporate department has 8 different SaaS products that they're paying for independently, and at least 7, legacy on-prem or bespoke, custom solutions that they're maintaining. And that's before you even count all of the shadow stuff that happens in between the gaps of all of that. You replicate that over and over again by every different department. We've made build or buy decisions in such isolation that the governance for our training management solution today has nothing to do with the governance for our employee onboarding solution, let alone the governance for our supply chain stack. And that's a big problem today for risk-conscious customers in highly regulated industries, let alone any real customer trying to create a cohesive data and AI story going forward. And so the opportunity to go rethink some of those point solutions or a lot of those point solutions onto a platform like Power Platform is actually a massive governance and oversight benefit, right? If I can go take completely disparate pieces of software and start running them on a platform that has the same deployment model, the same authentication constructs, the same data connectivity. Now I've got a huge win from a streamlined governance perspective, let alone the benefit I'm getting by bringing those things into a modern and AI-centric world much faster than any one of those point solution providers is going to be able to do it on their own. And so that's really what's driving this concept of building instead of buying, building on a consistent low code platform. Governance is at the heart of that in all its forms. And that's why we've been investing so much in the ability to manage the platform.
Right. And I mean, as you're seeing innovation with generative AI and Power Apps and all across Power Platform, to be honest, at such a rapid pace, I mean, you're probably seeing the innovation in governance features too, right? It's not like now this is just coming out in response. We are proactively building features to enable organizations. And so you see that as a way of kind of combating risk as you're taking on all these new features.
100%. And I think it's really combating pre-existing risk and putting organizations into a better position. But it's not just something that's happening by accident. Ken will let you know. We are really pushing hard on the thesis here is be the standard platform for business software for the next several decades. And so we have to go look at what's wrong with our current set of applications. One of the biggest things that's a mess today is all of the disjointedness that currently happens across that landscape of historical build or buy decisions. And that's why, having one central platform to manage governance, to manage security, to manage DevOps and operations, really starts to streamline what it takes to transform a massive amount of software really quick. If you accept the premise that basically all of the software we run inside of our companies today is effectively obsolete within the next 3 years, because of what generative AI will be able to do and automate and elevate within each of those places, then you have to ask yourself, how am I going to completely retool an entire company in, maybe a tenth of the time that it took me to build up all that software in the first place? I can't do it at present course and speed. I have to go to a higher level of abstraction, and that higher level of abstraction has to have network effects of common management and governance. And that's really, again, why we put so much energy into management layers, because it's just existential for this thesis to really work. But it's also a huge advantage of Power Platform today compared to every other more isolated point solution on the market.
Ryan, you touched on something just now, and the way you described it, two parts of this maybe. One, we kind of glossed over this maybe at Ignite in blogs and so on. We've
Yeah.
essentially split managed environments into three,
Yeah.
and we have now managed security, managed governance, and managed operations. But customers, even with that, that was very well received, of course, still had some reservations in terms of adopting the platform because of licensing. Now, one thing that we really really glossed over was that the license model has changed for managed environment. And personally, I've seen folks just elated at the change.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts on basically the split of the three, and of course now the license change to open the doors for greater adoption and more customers, making things more accessible for them?
Are you trying to say, Ken, that everybody didn't read paragraph 27 of my blog post with the same level of intensity that they read paragraph 1?
Clearly not, Ryan. Clearly not.
I get it. No, this is a big deal, and I do think it may have gotten a bit lost in all of the noise of Ignite, and it's a little bit of a technical concept. But historically, any asset in a managed environment required a premium license, and that's because all of these premium governance and operations and security features are premium. They're way more than what we expect people to need from personal productivity, and therefore, even if that asset happens to connect to a SharePoint list, if you need advanced security, advanced governance, and advanced DevOps over it, then it's a good indicator that it's no longer a personal productivity scenario. Now, historically, there's been a question mark, though, particularly for Power Automate flows that are not in the context of a Power App and also not already premium. Do those require the user to have a standalone Power Automate license in addition to a standard Power Apps license in the environment? And we pushed a clarification, effectively saying, no, they do not. We will not double charge for environment level management features. particularly over those seeded assets. And so that means the otherwise non-premium asset, a flow or an app that would have been standard unless for the advanced governance features. Those now require the user to have one of the premium licenses, but not all of the premium licenses. And so that unblocks very specifically a lot of customers who have a very broad coverage of Power Apps licenses, but a more targeted set of Power Automate licenses that unblocks them from really going big with managed environments. And we've seen that already in just the last, month, a pretty substantial uptick in adoption of managed environments as a result.
That's awesome. And I will make sure that we emphasize that blog post, and I will go and hunt down paragraph 27A and 27B, article 7 of your blog post for that. So I want to touch back on Plan Designer and the Plan
Yeah.
Designer functionality in Power Apps, and a little bit of kind of like what that means for build versus buy, and how should a user approach best practices. And what I mean by that is, okay, cool. So I've no longer had to just like develop this Power App in a traditional sense. I'm now using Plan Designer to go and make this. And I'm able to go and get a Canvas app, a model-driven app, some Power Automate flows behind it to kind of automate things behind there. And now I see that an agent should be included. How can a user identify when an agent would best be served in a business process that I'm building out, either with Plan Designer, or maybe I want to revisit something that I've built previously before? Like, what are the key factors that I should look out for as a maker to include an agent to increase productivity?
So I will say, Plan Designer is in its very early infancy right now. Expect that it will grow rapidly. And one of the dimensions it will grow in is the breadth of the rest of Power Platform and even the rest of Microsoft assets that it will bring to bear on any given solution, including standalone agents. However, today, even, if that Plan Designer recommends a model driven Power App, for example, that model-driven Power App is now shipping with agents built in to the surface of the app to help with data entry, help with data exploration, help with summarization, etc. And then even for pre-existing assets, one of the other big announcements at Ignite was, even if I built a Power App 3 years ago, I can now go and generate an agent from that app. And we'll actually analyze, what's the metadata in the app? What are the forms? What are the data connections? How do people use this thing? And then go suggest very specific agent skills that are implied by the app as a way to just automate a process much faster. So one of the cool demos that we did in those Ignite sessions was around a Wells Fargo scenario. Wells Fargo, by the way, a customer that has 100% of the company covered with premium Power Apps, 100% of the organization in managed environments. They shared on stage. They have more than 1,900 environments fully managed, and that they've now rolled out Copilot Studio agents to more than 4,000 bank branches. And one of the demos that we showed was taking an existing app for a bank branch teller and generating an agent that would automate a very specific part of that app. In the case of the demo, it was around how they vetted and managed a power of attorney form requests. That was a business process they estimate they spent 25,000 hours a week on, just vetting if a power of attorney form was valid when somebody came into a bank branch to try to execute a transaction on an account they did not own. That, by the way, is labor that is real cost to the customer, but it's also a pretty poor customer experience to be waiting up to 20, 30 minutes at a time to know if your document is valid or not. And so, for a customer like Wells, investing in an agent for that very specific skill of analyze a document, recommend whether it's valid or not, that is both a cost savings and a massive customer experience improvement. And I think to the core of your question, okay, how do I know if I need an agent? Gosh, anywhere you're spending 25,000 hours a week on repetitive tasks is a great indicator. And there's probably lots of those types of things in every company. But particularly those repetitive processes, somebody has to fill out a form every single time, or somebody has to review a document every single time. Somebody has to manually enter data every single time. Those are the places where we're looking first, where agents can provide a lot of value. And that's where the platform will suggest them through things like Plan Designer, through things like generate an agent from an app. But that's also a great place for everybody listening to this to kind of start thinking about, where not just where would a human benefit from a chatbot, but where do I have people doing the same thing over and over and over and over again? And I have not yet had the opportunity, or it has not yet been practical to automate that. Agents open up a whole new set of opportunities to go drive value in that space.
So Ryan, at Ignite, as with all things, when we start naming products, we sometimes name things the same thing. So Satya was on stage and he started talking about pages. And I'm like, wait a minute, we didn't do anything with pages. What the heck is pages? So now we have Microsoft Pages and Power Platform. Like, what's the difference, Ryan?
They say there are only two things that are hard in computer science, and one of them is naming. We're generally better at the other one. But no, Copilot Pages is a Microsoft 365 concept where if I'm working with M365 Copilot and I want to persist that interaction and invite other people to it, basically creating a more persistent version of that one chat topic and then turning it into a living document that I can bring other people around. And that's an M365 Copilot page. That is a very different concept than a Power Pages website that I'm going to go use to interact with external customers, partners, suppliers, citizens that hundreds of millions of people around the world use every single month. In that case, Power Pages is a product really for building websites in Power Platform. Now, I'll use the opportunity to plug Power Pages also has gotten a ton of really cool generative AI upgrades directly in that Pages experience. I can create a site Copilot out of the box that will, work over the existing content in my website. I can now also do some of the same types of things of assisted data entry or quickly understanding a grid of options using Copilot features built in, including, we've done a very cool demo of having an end user applying for something on a Power Pages website. Just take a photo of a document or even a photo of a identity document and use that to auto fill out forms on a Power Pages site. So really cool innovation happening in that space as well, but very different from an internal personal productivity collaboration space.
Thank you. So one of the things that I think, I'm kind of dwelling on this right now and everything that you said, and we've got a lot to be proud of, especially this year. We've moved so fast, right? And responding to customer demand and so on. And one of those things that we can be just immensely proud of right now is that we have a brand new admin center near and dear to my heart. And it is very purpose built for very different scenarios. And one of the things that we've heard from customers in the past is that, hey, you're not very security minded. You're not very security focused. Now, though, not to say that we weren't in the past, but now it's like it's bam, it's in your face, right? It's like it's right there. You've got security score, you've got recommendations, you've got so many things. My question is, how do you feel now, Ryan, that we have this and we're leading more so with security and governance, and it is simply just, empowering organizations because that's now the foundation for them to feel secure and have less risk, less exposure. Your thoughts?
I am incredibly proud, not just that we now have the most beautiful admin center on the planet, but that it is highly opinionated. It is really
Yes.
much more organized. We used to sort of make fun of ourselves for our list of lists. "Hey, we heard you liked lists. Let's add some more lists in here." And we've really started to rethink, what are core workspaces for different types of administration, governance, and security professionals? What do they need to live and breathe in order to, deploy a whole lot of software responsibly at scale? What does that mean for the security professional, for the ops professional, for the governance professional, and sort of how do we really tailor not just even the user experiences, but also the proactive alerting and AI features in the platform to each of those roles. And I think, we took a huge step forward there with what we shipped and rolled out at Ignite. I've heard lots of good things from customers all over the world in the last few weeks as a result. My job here is to be both the most proud person on the planet of our products and the most critical and driven to continue evolving them. And I would say we have a lot of work yet to do to go meet our ultimate ambitions. If you fast forward here and say, look, we're doing all of this not just because historical customers have wanted it, but also because we know it's going to be existential to being the standard platform for business software for the next 2 decades. We've got a great running start. We are certainly not going to slow down. We're going to go take a nice breather for the holidays. Everybody has worked really hard and has deserved it. And then we're we're going to also, come back with fresh eyes and say, okay, this is great. Let's make it better. And I'm pretty excited about where that goes as well.
Also, one point about the admin center, you've done a good job when certain individuals in the community are commenting and saying how beautiful and how great this actually is, right?
100%.
Those folks shall remain nameless. I see you. I watch you on LinkedIn, right? I hear you.
Indeed. I always get a little bit unnerved when we make the skeptics happy. We got to make sure there was a lot.
Very much so.
Ryan, so okay, we touched on a little bit about innovation for makers as they're working with Power Apps and all the new features that are rolling out. And then we also talked about the governance and security and operational tools and features that are available for organizations as we are putting out all these AI features and for existing Power Platform features too. But really, in your eyes, between makers or admins, who holds the keys to innovation in an organization? Who's got the power?
Yeah, it's a cage match, but I think there's actually an interesting, it's not just the world is not that simple. I would say, um, and I would say actually, as software gets much easier to create and as processes get more and more automated, the real balance of power shifts towards process expertise. And how do I start to encode, describe, and scale what it takes to actually operate a business? Whether that is running an IT department, making a help desk more efficient, doing employee onboarding and device allocation, or whether it means actually running core financial processes or running a shop floor or running a customer service operation, running retail. That's really where all this technology comes to bear in a big way. You cannot administer yourself or tinker yourself out of an inefficient starting point into a highly efficient starting point. You need people who are passionate about those processes and deeply understand them to really guide the way. And so I would say, the organizations that are really winning right now and are going to win over the next few years are the ones that effectively blur those lines between who sets the rules, who has the expertise and who's actually doing the building and the making. The more we can get those humans around the same table, if not actually being the same human, the faster we're going to go transforming a lot of these parts of the operation. And they all desperately need each other. I can't go build something in isolation of what's really going to make a business more efficient. I also can't go build it in isolation of what's going to keep my company secure, what kind of data I need to connect to, how I'm going to scale it responsibly and make it perform under load at massive volume. These legs of the stool really rely on each other. And I think, my great hope by bringing even the next level of Gen AI into all of these experiences is that we can get those people closer together. We can get makers and users and admins to really function as hybrid teams. And the companies that are thinking that way, man, they're doing amazing things already in Power Platform.
So, Ryan, we've been, again, going back and looking at how much we've done this year, and it's almost as if we've sort of readopted Moore's law, per se, right? It's just things are moving so fast. What's next for us in 2025? What can we expect on the horizon that you can, of course, share with us?
Well, if my answer to you 9 months ago was Copilot, 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 I think my answer today will be agents, agents, and agents, which is now a word we use a lot more publicly, and we've brought a lot more concrete definition around. But I really think we're still in the early days of what is possible by transitioning very specific jobs and particular skills and tasks to increasingly autonomous agents. And I think that will be a journey we'll be on as an industry for years. I mean, it's something we've already been on as an industry for a long time without realizing it. But I think 2025 gets really exciting for how can I surround every human maker with a team of specialists in data modeling, in experience design, in solution architecture? How can I surround every end user with a team of specialists in data entry, reporting, summarization, updates, custom tasks, and even how can I surround every admin, for all the flavors of what that means with a set of tools and a team of agents that are their eyes and ears, and help them really focus on what matters most and get those jobs done efficiently and pursue outcomes like a better security posture, or a better ALM setup for critical workloads much, much more efficiently. And so, we have very ambitious agenda for how we advance the role of agents in an application platform over the next year. And we're certainly not going to wait or slow down to keep that rolling out. We've got some pretty big plans even for the first few months of the year.
Well, I'm super excited to see what's coming down the pipe. Actually, the stuff that I have seen that I will not talk about right now, I am just blown away by. And Ken, that was cute that you said that you get to take a break. I know that's not on the roadmap for you at all. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and all the wisdom that you shared with us. And we'll be revisiting this episode many, many times over the coming months. And we can't wait to have you back on. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, thank you guys for what you do in the community and for taking time to have these conversations and make space for them. It is a vital part of what we do.
Thank you so much.